Okay, so if there was just one ingredient that I would have to recommend to every single person, it would definitely be niacinamide, also known as vitamin B3. So niacinamide can actually help with a range of different skin concerns. It can help clear acne, calm inflammation, reduce redness, help reduce transepidermal water loss. It has anti-aging properties. It reduces hyperpigmentation, and it also strengthens the acid mantle. And the acid mantle is the protective layer of your skin. Strengthening the acid mantle is so important. But how do we actually know it does what it says it does? So luckily for us, there's been plenty of studies done on niacinamide, and we have lots of research on this ingredient to show that it actually works and it actually penetrates into the skin. By the way, I am reading from my blog I wrote. Over on Patreon, I create blog versions of almost every single video I do on my channel. For my recipe videos, I create blogs with the formula, the recipe, step-by-step directions, substitutions, benefits of the ingredients. I include a PDF file you can download and print out of videos like this or my recipe videos. My recipe videos include an Excel spreadsheet to where you can change the batch size to whatever amount you want and it'll just recalculate the recipe for you. I post 2 bonus videos on there every single month. We have an exclusive community chat that we can go on there, help each other formulate. I also answer your guys' questions on there. I do a monthly Q&A where I answer your guys' questions. There is literally so much over on Patreon. If you guys want more content from me or want my content in blog-like form, go over to the Patreon. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. So thank you so much to all my patrons for sponsoring today's video. So what makes niacinamide so amazing is that it is great for any skin type or skin tone. So if you're dealing with any of the skin concerns that I've talked about in this video, try adding niacinamide into your skincare routine daily and hopefully that'll help you out. Obviously, I'm not an esthetician, I'm not a chemist. These are just some suggestions from me, so take it with a grain of salt. Formulating with niacinamide. So from a formulator standpoint, niacinamide is really easy to incorporate into all kinds of products because it is water soluble. It's not recommended to be used in wash off products because the niacinamide will just get washed off your skin and go right down the drain and it'll be a waste of money. So only use it in leave-on products, so things like toners, serums, and moisturizers. So you can add the niacinamide directly into the water, mix for a couple seconds until it dissolves, and you'll see exactly how easy it is to use. Now hold on, you can't just go mixing niacinamide into water and putting that directly on your face. First off, you need a preservative. When there's water, there's life. So bacteria, yeast, mold, those will all immediately start growing in that bottle if it's not properly preserved. And no, you can't just put it in the refrigerator. It's like food, you know? If you're formulating without a preservative, it's only gonna be good for like a couple days. So you need a preservative if you want to continuously use that product until it's all the way gone. In my opinion, the easiest preservative to use is Liquid Dermal Plus. All you need to do is add in 0.5% Liquid Dermal Plus into your water and niacinamide mixture. Mix that in. Now you don't have to worry about it spoiling. But how in the world do you measure out 0.5%? So if we take a look at the description of the niacinamide, on the website where we bought it, you'll see that it says the recommended usage rate is in between 1 to 6%. So this means we also need to make sure we're using niacinamide in between 1 to 6%. So again, how do you measure that? I'll explain all that to you. Don't worry. How to write a formula. So this is exactly how you write a formula for any other cosmetic product as well. The formula always needs to add up to 100% no matter what. So as of now, we know we need 0.5% Liquid Dermal Plus, and then we also know that we need niacinamide in between 1 to 6%. If you use too much, it can cause irritation on the skin. You don't always need more to make it better. Sometimes. A lot of the studies and research we have done on niacinamide is being used at more like 4 to 5%, but start with a smaller percentage, and if it doesn't irritate your skin, you can move up from there. So we currently know we have in our formula 0.5% Liquid Dermal Plus and 2% niacinamide. But like I said, the formula needs to add up to 100%. We need to make the rest of the percentage distilled water. What you need to do is add up the 0.5% with the 2%, which equals 2.5%. And then subtract that from 100. So 100 minus 2.5% is 97.5. So now we know we need 97.5% distilled water to make this formula add up to 100%. And there you go. That is all you need to do to write a formula. It's seriously that that easy. Now, if you want to make things more fun, you could use like a hydrosol instead of distilled water, like rose hydrosol, lavender hydrosol. You could even do like half hydrosol, half distilled water. Easily mix things up to make it more fun. And also, you have to use distilled water. You can't use any other water. Distilled water has been purified to where there's like literally nothing in it. Other waters we drink will have like minerals added in, or might have some kind of like microbes possibly. So we want distilled water only. And if you're in the United States, you can find distilled water at any grocery store. I don't know about any other countries and where you guys find distilled water. So comment down below what your country is and where you find distilled water if it's like harder to find it where you are. So now we have our formula, but how do we measure all that out? So if you just want to make a 100-gram batch of your niacinamide toner, all you would do is weigh out 0.5 grams of liquid Dermal Plus, 2 grams of niacinamide, and 97.5 grams of distilled water. You literally just change the percent sign to grams because the formula adds up to 100. So we know if we just add in the amounts of all those ingredients, it'll add up to 100. So it's fine to do that. But if you want to make, say, maybe like a 650-gram batch, how do you figure that out? The easiest way to do it is to literally just Google what is 0.5% of 650, and Google will tell you all of your answers. But you can also do the math, and I've explained how to do the math on how to calculate a formula in many different videos. I'll link down below to my video that is just strictly all about how to transfer a formula to recipes, and I cover like 3 different methods on how to do that, including the one with doing math and moving to decimal points. So if you guys want to learn how to do all that, link below. Okay, now there is one more thing you need to learn about before you go slapping that DIY niacinamide toner on your face. But this next lesson is actually important for almost every single cosmetic product you will ever make. So it's really important that you understand this topic. pH. Here is what a pH scale looks like. So as you can see on your left, the numbers get lower, but it gets more acidic. And on your right, the numbers get higher, but it becomes more alkaline or basic. Typically, I hear people say alkaline, but sometimes you'll hear people say basic as well. And then a pH of 7 is considered neutral, and 7 is the pH of water. So our skin's natural pH is somewhere between 4.5 to 5.5. Some people will say it can even go up to 6. And typically, most skincare products land somewhere between those levels. But there are exceptions to this. For example, soap does have a higher pH, somewhere around 10. So those are definitely more alkaline. And this is why sometimes if you notice if you've ever used soap on your face, you'll get that tight, squeaky feeling. This is because of the high pH it has. And this is why face washes and cleansers are more popular to use on your face because they have a skin balanced pH to where you don't get that dried out, squeaky feeling like you would from soap. And then also skincare products that contain alpha hydroxy acids or beta hydroxy acids, those typically have a much lower pH as well because a lot of AHAs and BHAs have a low pH. And normally their pH is between like 1 to 2, and that's way too acidic for the skin. So you have to then raise the pH enough to where it's safe to use on the skin, but not so much to where the AHA or BHA is now unactive. So typically those are between like 3.5 to like 4.5. And understanding pH isn't only important for our skin's health and safety, but it's also important for the ingredients we're adding into the formula because a lot of ingredients have to be in a specific pH to stay active. And I bring this up because unfortunately, niacinamide is one of those pH sensitive ingredients. Said every supplier ever. Guys, it's not true. It doesn't need to be in a pH of 6. Thanks to the research of my friend Zachariah of @CosmeticYourWays, which by the way, if you guys are looking for someone to help create custom formulas for you, do one-on-one consultations, or if you just want another formulating blog to read from somebody who's actually in school to become a cosmetic chemist, check out @CosmeticYourWays on Instagram or his website, cosmeticyourways.com. I'll have both linked down below. So most places you learn about niacinamide online, including past videos of my own, past blogs of my own, the formulating guidelines from every single supplier that sells niacinamide, they all mention that you need to keep niacinamide in a pH of 6. So they say that it has to stay in a pH of 6 because at acidic pH levels, levels, niacinamide can hydrolyze and turn into niacin, which niacin can be irritating to the skin. Marie of Humblebee and Me has also made a post on this topic addressing that you can use niacinamide in low pH levels, so I don't know how I missed this. So I'm not really sure how the misinformation online got spread. According to some forums I've read on Chemistry Corner, that people have read academic research papers and just misunderstood them and took it as niacinamide will hydrolyze into niacin at low pH levels. But in reality, it takes extreme specific conditions to get niacinamide to turn into niacin. So it's not really an issue that home crafters are going to come across. If you're formulating within a skin safe pH, niacinamide's not going to turn into niacin. Fortunately, I have definitely fallen victim to the misinformation of niacinamide, and I have fallen victim to misinformation to so much stuff when it comes to formulating. We're definitely in the age of misinformation. Anybody can pick up a camera, make a video about anything, and most people just take what the YouTuber says as fact. But in fact, most of us aren't qualified. If you see someone who actually is a doctor or a specialist in what they're talking about, there will be something underneath the video that mentions, like Dr. Dre. She is an actual doctor who can speak on skincare, and that's why she has the qualifications underneath her video. So just keep in mind that anything you learn online should be questioned, even the things that I say. Oftentimes we can teach things and say that it's 1, 2, 3, but really there is so much nuance, and it can go from like 1 to 4 or 1 to 3. Like, it's not always 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that's a good analogy that I'm using, but I hope you guys know what I mean. There's always exceptions to the rule. Even if I'm teaching something a specific way, it's just the only way that I can grasp to explain it in a simple way without going into the depths of all the nuance to every single topic. Otherwise, my videos would be way too much. Overall, formulating is a science. I'm not a cosmetic chemist. I'm not a scientist. I'm not even an esthetician. I'm self-taught. So anything that I say on my channel should be taken with a grain of salt, should be questioned, and you should just use my content as stepping stones to go towards the direction you want to go to. I just hope that you guys can understand and forgive me if I ever share misinformation or inaccurate information. Just feel free to present me with the facts and what I'm doing wrong, and I'm always willing to admit if I'm wrong, fix errors, go back and delete videos, put notes in. It's formulating, it's science. We're all learning, and if we couldn't make mistakes, then so many people would be scared to get into formulating. So it's normal. Get into formulating, you make mistakes, and you learn. That's literally formulating. Here are some sources provided by Zachariah of at Cosmetic Your Ways about why niacinamide is okay to be used in a pH between 4 to 6. I added them all in the description box. So the study that everybody points back to for the claim that it's okay to use niacinamide in a pH between 4 to 6 is a study titled Rate Studies on the hydrolysis, I hope I said that right, of niacinamide. I'll put the link down below if you want to read that article. You do have to pay to read it, but you can read just like a short brief of it at the beginning. Some of you may be wondering about niacinamide PC. This is actually a niacinamide I was raving about a couple months ago because it claims that it can be formulated in a low pH and it won't turn into niacin. I was wondering myself, like, why are there 2 different versions of niacinamide? So I asked Zachariah what his thoughts were on it. So let's listen to what Zachariah has to say.
Yes, I went down a whole freaking rabbit hole just with this, and yeah, basically they explained people even used niacinamides with acids and have been completely fine. I did look into the PC thing, and basically the and I'm gonna completely butcher this name, but the niacinamide or whatever the impurity is, PC version just has like half the amount of the impurity in it. They clean it up a little bit. So that's literally the only difference between those two. But yeah, happy formulating.
But the truth is, the conditions that we need for niacinamide to turn into niacin are conditions our products will never reach. According to kindofsteven.com in a post titled, "Can you use niacinamide and vitamin C together?" He says, and I quote, Niacinamide is so stable that a 10% solution can be heated to 120 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes with no niacin forming. In another experiment, it took about 75 hours in a pH 2 solution at 90 degrees Celsius to convert about half the niacinamide to niacin. Heat vastly speeds up reactions. A rough approximation is that every 10 degrees Celsius increase in temperature doubles the reaction rate. If the pH 2 solution was kept at 30 degrees Celsius, we could expect it to take over 4,800 hours or almost half a year, and that's if the acidic solution doesn't corrode your skin first. But yeah, so as long as your product is within a skin-safe pH, the niacinamide is not going to convert to niacin. You're good. If you want more information on misinformation and formulating, go check out Cosmetic Your Ways. Baby just came inside and she's meowing at me. I'm pretty sure he's going to deep dive even more into this topic, so check him out. So how exactly do you adjust the pH? It depends on if you want to lower it or if you want to raise it. So if you want to lower the pH, you need to take 50% citric acid with 50% distilled water. So that's just equal parts. So you can do like 50 grams of citric acid and 50 grams of distilled water. Mix those together until the citric acid has fully dissolved. And you're going to take just 1 to 2 drops and drop that in your product, or our niacinamide toner in this case. I would only do 1 to 2 drops at first and drop that into your product. Mix it in until it's fully mixed in. Wait for a minute so the pH can adjust, and then you take the pH again. When you're making small batches, only add in maybe 1 drop at a time. If you're making larger batches, you can probably add like 2, 3, 5 at a time. It just depends. It's, you know, the bigger batch you have, the more pH buffer you need. The smaller batch you have, the less pH buffer you need. So just keep that in mind. And remember, you can always add more, but you can't take it away once it's added in. So just a little bit at a time. And then there's lactic acid. Again, you do this the same way. You just buy lactic acid and then you can add 1 drop or 2 into your product at a time, mix it in, check the pH. Yeah. So if you want to raise the pH, well, there's actually a bunch of different ways you can do that. So let's quickly talk about a few. Try ethanolamine. I don't know how to say it, guys. You use it the same way as like the citric acid buffer. You could also do a sodium hydroxide solution. Sodium hydroxide is what's used to make soap. So you do have to be really careful when working with it. But what you would do is dissolve 10% sodium hydroxide in 90% distilled water. And you need to take precaution when doing this. You need to be outside in a well-ventilated room, wear protective clothing, goggles. Oh yeah, and gloves. This is a bit more evolved. And it's personally the way that I always raise the pH. I don't know why, even though I think it's like one of the hardest ways. It's just what I'm used to. I do have a video that actually goes into detail on how to make this sodium hydroxide buffer solution. And the whole video actually goes into so much detail about pH, everything you need to know. So I recommend watching that if you want to learn everything about pH. Baking soda. I would say that this is the most DIY method to raise the pH. I would say this method is also not common in professional products. And this is mainly because you need a lot of baking soda to get to your desired pH typically. And also you need to make sure you're dissolving the baking soda in water before adding it into your product too, which then makes it even harder to get to the pH you need because now it's diluted. So I don't personally recommend using baking soda to raise the pH, but I know I get a lot of comments wanting to, so try it. If it works, it works. Sodium phytate, this is another way you can raise the pH. This isn't a popular way to raise the pH. This is just my personal method to raise the pH sometimes. So sodium phytate is a chelating agent. So in simplest terms, a chelating agent helps get rid of metals that might be found in our skincare products. Metals can get into our products like a number of different ways. It can happen during manufacturing. It can happen just from the ingredients that we use in the products, and also from the hard waters that we use. So using a chelating agent is actually almost always necessary for professional products. I always say for DIYers, they're not as necessary because we're using up our products faster. But if you're selling or you're making products that need to be shelf stable for a long time, like professional products, you need a chelating agent. So chelating agents also help improve the preservation of our product, help stabilize emulsions, help keep the products from changing in color. They help keep the pH from drifting and can help with reducing soap scum and cleansing products. You can actually learn more about chelating agents in this video here, so I'll have that video linked down below. So sodium phytate has a high pH, and when you add that into the formula of your product, it will raise the pH of your overall product. I often like to include this ingredient in products that I know are going to end up having a lower pH than I need. That way I'm getting the benefits of a chelating agent, but I'm also getting the benefits of a pH buffer, so it's like killing two birds with one stone. Why does that saying have to sound so violent? There is one type of product that doesn't need a chelating agent. Those are cationic based products like hair conditioners. Now I'm just getting into like way too much stuff. So if you want to learn more about like cationic, anionic, non-ionic, amphoteric, those are surfactants, which I recommend learning about surfactants if you want to formulate skincare products. This video right here, I'll have it linked down below. Sodium phytate is recommended to be used in between 0.05% and 0.5%. So you don't need a lot of it. If you need more than 0.5% sodium phytate to get to the pH you're trying to get to, then obviously it's not a good pH buffer for that formula. And again, for more information on pH, how to use a pH meter, you know, how to check the pH, how to lower it, how to raise it, everything. Video all about pH, I'll have it linked down below. Now let's get back to that super simple niacinamide toner we were making. We really got off topic here. Here's the formula. So remember, every cosmetic starts out as a formula that adds up to 100%, and then you use that formula to create your batch size. I'm creating a 100 gram batch, and this is the recipe we're gonna be using. So all I'm doing is pouring in all of the distilled water, and then I'm adding in the niacinamide, mixing that up until it completely dissolves. And then lastly, the preservative. This is literally as basic as it can get because normally we would add in maybe like a little bit of a thickening agent, maybe some extracts, some hydrosols, all that kind of stuff. But we're keeping it super, super simple for this first recipe just to show you guys just how simple it can be. So just make sure everything is well combined, and then you want to check and adjust the pH. You want the pH anywhere between 4.5 to 5.5 since that's our skin's natural pH. The natural pH is 6.5, and I'm not surprised because all this really is water, niacinamide, and a preservative, and water's natural pH is somewhere around 7. So you can basically assume it's going to be around 7 if you just mainly have distilled water. Adding in some botanical extracts and hydrosols will lower the pH, so I guarantee if you use rose water here, you probably wouldn't have needed to even adjust the pH, but obviously I needed to adjust the pH. So I made a batch of 50% citric acid with 50% distilled water. I talked about how to make this earlier in the video, and all I did was add in 1 drop of the citric acid buffer, and the pH dropped down to 5.47, which is perfect because again, we want something in between 4.5 to 5.5. So we can just leave it there. Just pour your toner in a sanitized container. I'm using this 2-ounce glass bottle. This doesn't need to be in a dark bottle or anything. Niacinamide isn't light sensitive, so there you go. You just made basically the simplest form of a niacinamide toner. We already made a niacinamide toner, but that one was like really simple, beginner friendly. Let's make a more professional niacinamide toner together. This formula is technically EcoCert compliant, and this product could also be marketed as natural. There is no legal definition of natural, so you basically have to create your own brand's philosophy of what natural means to you and your brand. So you want to start out with a sanitized container. I will link down below to where I buy all of my equipment for formulating, and I started with the preservative, which is GeoGuard 221. I'm making a 200 gram batch, so I added in 2.2 grams. And then with that, I added in 2 grams of polysugamols D9, which is a solubilizer. So GeoGuard 221, it says that it's water soluble, but in my experience, it doesn't mix into water well. You need a solubilizer to help disperse it in the water. And the polysugamols D9 is a great solubilizer to get the GeoGuard 221 to completely mix in with the rest of the watery ingredients. Otherwise, you would see little chunks of the GeoGuard, which is like yellowish, floating around the product and not be fully mixed in, and that can cause skin irritation and also cause your product to spoil. So you need to make sure if you're using preservatives that don't mix fully in with water, that you're using a solubilizer to get it to mix in. The only preservative that I know of that you could add directly into this product and get it to mix in would be Liquid Dermal Plus. And that's why I always recommend it for beginners. But I know I have so many viewers who want more natural EcoCert compliant formulas. So that's what I'm trying to do for you guys. You can easily switch out the GeoGuard and get rid of the Polysuga because you wouldn't need that anymore either, and just use Liquid Dermal Plus as your preservative here. Mix those two together until they're well combined. So now moving on to phase B, you can weigh out phase B all in this same beaker or in a separate beaker. I started with adding in 10 grams of glycerin. This is a humectant that will help hydrate your skin. And then I added in 60 grams of rose hydrosol. You could use distilled water here or any other hydrosol of your choice. And then I added in 59.8 grams of distilled water, then 60 grams of witch hazel hydrosol, and mixed all those together. Then I added in my 6 grams of niacinamide, mix that in until it fully dissolved, and now we can check the pH. So the natural pH of this was 4.9. So I went ahead and poured this toner in a 4-ounce bottle since I made a 200-gram batch. I had a little bit left over. I'll link down below to where I bought all the packaging I used in this video, and I'll also link down below to my video that showed you guys how I make my labels, because so many of you guys love these new labels I've been making, and they're pretty simple to make, so link below. Use this toner like you would any other toner. You can pour it on a cotton round, apply it to your skin after cleansing. You can pour it in your hands and put it on your face if you want. It's very liquidy, so it's hard to do that. You could put it in a spray bottle if you want and then spray it on your face that way. That could also work. Or you could dip like toner pads and then press that on your face. That could be really nice as well. You can apply this any way you like to apply your daily toner. You can use it in the AM and the PM if you want. By the way, I do have a 2-part video that deep dives into everything about formulating toners. So I'll have both of those videos linked down below. So I'm sure you also gotta know how to make a niacinamide serum, right? So let's do that. There are honestly so many different ways to make serums, and I am planning a deep dive video that goes into depth on how to make serums. So look out for that video. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified for that. And I'll go into so much detail on how like different methods you can like thicken and gel your serum. So much information to come. But for now, the method that I'm going to use to thicken and gel my serum is using Sepamax Zen. But again, there's so many other ingredients out there that do something similar. But anyways, let's talk about how to make the serum. So this serum formula technically wouldn't be considered EcoCert compliant or natural because Sepamax Zen is synthetic, but all the other ingredients in this formula are. So if you want to use an EcoCert natural alternative to Sepamax Zen, that would be xanthan gum, but I don't personally like the way that that feels on the skin and serums personally, so it's up to you. All right, again, you want to start out with a sanitized container, and I'm going to add in the preservative again, GeoGuard 221. I'm adding in 2.2 grams of it, and then again, followed by the 2 grams of Polysuga Mols D9 to make sure it gets mixed into the formula. Moving on to phase B, you can measure all this in a separate container or just add it directly into this container. I added in 10 grams of glycerin. This is a humectant, so it'll help hydrate the skin. And then I added in 126.8 grams of distilled water, 40 grams of blood orange hydrosol. You can use any hydrosol you want. 4 grams of marshmallow extract. You could use a different botanical extract. Then I added in 10 grams of niacinamide. I actually decided to make this one a 5% niacinamide serum. I don't know why, I just decided to. And then you want to mix that in until it dissolves. And then I added in 4 grams of DL-panthenol. This is a humectant. It's also known as vitamin B5 and it helps hydrate the skin. This is another amazing ingredient I could do an entire dedicated video on, so let me know if you want to see that. So mix all of that together until all of the powders have fully dissolved. DL-panthenol and niacinamide both dissolve super easily, so you shouldn't have to wait long for that. And once everything is dissolved, we can move on to phase C, and phase C just includes the Sepamax Zen. And this is because you just want to sprinkle the Sepamax Zen on top of your water and let it sit. You don't want to mix it in. And then you can cover it and let it sit overnight. And then when you come back the next day, you can uncover it, mix it up, and you'll notice it's thickened gel consistency. Now, if it's not thick enough for you, increase the Sepamax Zen. You could do 1%, 0.7%. And then of course, you can't forget to check and adjust the pH. So again, I am just pouring it into a little 25 milliliter beaker, placing in my pH meter, and the natural pH is 5.39. We don't have to adjust it, which is perfect. I'll link down below to the bottle I stored the serum in. When applying this serum, you just want to take a couple pumps in the palm of your hands, massage it into your face after cleansing, and after using a toner, if you decide to use a toner, let your skin dry and then apply a moisturizer over top. Okay, now moving on, I want to show you guys how to make a niacinamide moisturizer as well. I do have an entire series that goes into detail on how to make emulsions. Moisturizers are a type of emulsions. Lotions, moisturizers, creams, hair conditioners, those are all emulsions. So I definitely recommend going and watching the Emulsions for Beginners series to understand everything about making a moisturizer. For now, let's make the niacinamide moisturizer. Again, I'm making a 200 gram batch, and you want to make sure you have a sanitized container, and this time make sure it's heat safe. We're going to start with measuring out phase A, which includes 139 grams of distilled water, and then 10 grams of glycerin, which is a humectant, it hydrates the skin. We've already talked about this. And then 1 gram of allantoin, and this is actually an ingredient that helps soothe the skin. Love this ingredient. Mix that all together. The allantoin will not dissolve until we heat it up. So grab another beaker because we need to weigh out phase B in a separate heat-safe container. I started with 20 grams of almond oil. You can use any plant oil you want here. And then 6 grams of emulsifying wax NF. This is the emulsifier, so this is the ingredient that helps keep all the oil and water together, and it also thickens the moisturizer a little bit. And then I'm adding in 4 grams of cetyl alcohol, but don't worry, this isn't an alcohol that dries out your skin. This is actually a moisturizing type of alcohol. It's completely different than the types of alcohol that's in products that dry out the skin. This ingredient not only moisturizes, but it also helps thicken the moisturizer, and it helps stabilize the emulsion, so it helps keep all the oil and water together. It works alongside the emulsifying wax NF. So before you heat up phase A and B, you need to tare your scale, so make sure your scale says 0, and place your phase A back on the scale. We're going to be heating this up, and some of the water is going to evaporate, so you need to take note of how much it weighs before we heat it up so we can replace back in any water that evaporates. So I have a portable stovetop that I put a pan on top of, but you can just use your normal oven stovetop. Place a pan on top, fill it with like an inch or so of water, and turn your stovetop on about medium heat, and then place both of your beakers in your pan and make sure they're covered with some foil. And make sure you pour enough water into the pan to cover most of like what's in your beaker. Otherwise, it might take a while to melt. And you are going to have to come back periodically and mix phase A to help dissolve the allantoin. Sometimes you have to come back to phase B and mix that too to help melt everything as well. So just keep an eye on them as they heat up. So once everything in phase B is melted, take the temperature, and it should be roughly around 70 degrees Celsius or 158 degrees Fahrenheit. And you want both phase A and B to be roughly around the same temperature. They don't need to be exact. When you get to that point, take phase A, make sure you remove the foil, place it back on your scale, and weigh it and add back in any water that evaporated. And then you can remove phase B from heat and pour your phase A into B, and then immediately mix with an immersion blender. And as it cools, you're going to want to come back periodically and mix again with your immersion blender. And once it starts to thicken, don't mix with your immersion blender anymore because that will incorporate air in your moisturizer, and we don't want that. So while that cools down, we can work on phase C. Make sure you have a sanitized container, and I added in 10 grams of distilled water. We're adding water in phase C to help dissolve the 4 grams of DL-panthenol and the 4 grams of niacinamide powder because these are powders, so we need some water to help get those to dissolve. So that's why we're incorporating the 5% distilled water. If you're using more powders than that, you might need more distilled water than that to get them to dissolve. So I originally added in 2.2 grams of GeoGuard 221 and then 0.5 grams of vitamin E. But this emulsion actually originally failed, and this is probably due to the GeoGuard 221. It can cause emulsion stability issues along with Optifin and Optifin Plus, Euxyl PE 9010. There are a few that can do this. So just keep that in mind that if your emulsion does fail, it's probably the preservative. This is why I'm constantly recommending Liquid Dermal Plus because it's just so easy to use. It's never destabilized any of my emulsions. Yeah, it's just constantly why I'm always using it in formulas because it never throws a wrench in my formulating process. But this time I did get a wrench in my formulating process, and I was wondering why my moisturizer just looked so gross. I'm not really sure. I would need to do more experiments to figure it out, but I didn't really care enough to figure it out. So instead, I just remade the moisturizer. and instead I used 0.5 grams of Liquid Dermal Plus. The formula you're seeing on the screen is the formula I ended up using. Once phase A and B, you know, the one you emulsified, has cooled to 100 degrees Fahrenheit or cooler, you can add in your phase C ingredients, and I just hand mix those. You don't want to use the immersion blender. Again, you don't want to incorporate air into your lotion. That can cause it to spoil. So just hand mix, and after that, you want to cover it with some plastic wrap and let it sit overnight. And the next day, this is when you can go ahead and package it up. And I just put mine in this 2-ounce frosted glass jar. I'll have them linked down below. And again, if you want to know how I make my labels, that video is linked down below as well. And yeah, you just use this in the AM and the PM. If you're using the toner and the serum and the moisturizer, that's too much niacinamide. That is everything you need to know about niacinamide. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making it. I want to make more videos like this, but with other ingredients. So what ingredient do you want to see next? Let me know. And I will see you guys in my next video. Later. Baby also says bye. Oop, sorry. Also, don't forget to go over and check out my Patreon, where I post 2 exclusive videos every single month. So there are a ton of videos you can go over there and binge watch for only $5 a month. And for $10 a month, you can get a small business shout out, or maybe you have a YouTube channel. So let's go ahead and shout everybody out. Nature's Farm Girl, thank you so much. Let's Blend, thank you. HempyGirl.com, ShopLevi's.com or ShopLevi's.com. 7th House and Oak on Etsy, at Black Petal Beauty on Instagram, Owl and Lily on Etsy, ZayelaMoore.com, I hope I said that right. EmbraceBeautyEssentials.com, LegendaryBathandBody.com, at Stardust Bath and Body on Instagram, AstariApothecary.com, Reviga Cosmetics here on YouTube, Nature's Magic LLC.com, and ExoreBB.com. Everybody will be linked down in my description box. Go sign up if you want a shout out, or if you just want bonus content. The shout out tier might be full. It's full pretty often because I only have so much space in the description box to link to everybody.